Welcome to the ID10T podcast number 1082. If you go over to ID10T.com right now, this week, the week of July, what is today? The 23rd. For the next couple of days, if you use the offer code ZOMBIE20, you will get 20% off all zombie-related items in the ID10T shop in honor of the Walking Dead panels at Virtual Comic-Con, Comic-Con at Home. And it's, Walking Dead related shirts, zombie phone case, blood splatter pop of me. So yes, Zombie20 at ID10T.com for the next few days here in the year 2020. I don't know when you're going to be listening to this, or maybe this is some future civilization listening back. And if it is thousands of years in the future, that offer code will not work anymore. I apologize. Also, the internet was a thing that we had where we shared information, I guess. So that on that tip of Comic-Con at Home, I'm moderating 3 Walking Dead panels that are going to go live on Comic-Con's YouTube page, which is just youtube.com/Comic-Con. And Friday, July 24th, Fear the Walking Dead at noon, The Walking Dead panel at 1, and Walking Dead World Beyond at 2. So cast members, producers, information will be announced that that you don't have yet. So tune into that and support Comic-Con at Home, Virtual Comic-Con. There's like 350 panels. There's so many great panels that they're putting up. So it was amazing that they were able to pull all that together and do the best they could in a very challenging situation. And we hope to see you next year in person at Comic-Con in San Diego. That's my hope. So that's that. Now let's talk about you, the ID10T community, corkboard, events at ID10T.com, like Diego, who writes, so I've been flirting around with the idea of creating a podcast for a long time. Never did it because as a creative, I tend to be a perfectionist and always feared I lacked the technical know-how in audio production to make it happen. Long story short, my 8-year-old son Joshua started getting the bug to create content, and it was the desire to do something creative with him that led me to say, to hell with it, let's do this and figure it out along the way, and created what I think is the first podcast hosted by a father and son. We call it Geekology 101, and in it we cover all things geeky. Each episode is focused on a single topic of geekdom, and it's a free-flowing chat between an 8-year-old and a 37-year-old who are both complete geeks. You can find the podcast at geekology101.com. And on podcast apps, oh, Diego, to you and Joshua, I have a hat on right now. I am taking it off. I just actually, can you hear it popping off? That's my hat coming off. I am tipping my hat. Well, no, I guess I pulled it off. But now I'm tipping it. I put it back on and I'm tipping it to you because that's a beautiful and wonderful and brilliant thing that you're doing. And an amazing way to be constructive at a time where you're probably home more than you were 4 months ago because of the state of the world. So wonderful thing that you're doing with your son, and I can't wait to give it a listen. So Geekology 101 to everyone else who's listening now. Events at ID10T.com is how you get your thing on the podcast. This episode is Harvey Guillén, who is just a brilliant performer. Currently, he plays Guillermo, who is a familiar to a group of very unappreciative vampires, and his character is oft overlooked for promotion, so to speak, on the show What We Do in the Shadows, which is based on the movie. The original movie, of course, is great. The television series is also incredible. Both brought to you by Taika Waititi and Jemaine Clement. Everyone on the show is just brilliant, and the chemistry that they all have together. I mean, it's What We Do in the Shadows is our favorite comedy on television right now. It is on FX and Hulu. The second season just ended. Thankfully, they did get picked up for a third. So they'll probably shoot that when we figure out how to do things like shoot shows again. Also, in addition to playing Guillermo on What We Do in the Shadows, Harvey hosted a pre-show for each episode of What We Do in the Shadows called Before the Shadows. So if you go to beforetheshadows.com, you can see those episodes, and there are and their video too, and he has cast members on, and he has Jemaine on, and so it's great. Harvey is not only incredibly talented, he's also just a wonderful human being who is a brilliantly emerging producer and content creator and writer as well. So he is someone that, you know, if you're already a fan of Shadows, or if you haven't watched it yet, you should. Harvey is someone that you're going to see a lot of really cool things from, in addition to this in the future. So I really, really, really enjoyed this chat with him. This is the ID10T podcast, number 1082, with Harvey Guillén.
Initiating ID10T protocol.
Chair you're sitting on is amazing. That carved woodwork is
from 1902.
Gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous. I love it. I found it and I reupholstered it, and yeah.
Oh man,
my little corner.
We're gonna have so much good stuff to talk about. You know, if that's just your office chair and that is like such a gorgeous piece of hand carved wooden furniture, I can't imagine. Is the rest of your place sort of filled with antique stuff?
Yeah, it's like a combination of antique and new and industrial. Like it's like a madman's house.
So when these types of things are allowed again, you have to come to our house, and because I feel like you're going to see a lot of crossover, because I can already tell, like, if I saw that chair on First Dibs, I would say to Lydia, like, I think we should probably get this chair.
That's how I was like, I'm getting this chair. And friends who come over, they're like, your place is like a museum, but like it's like a writer that went mad. And
yeah, but how do you there's some really cool set pieces on your show, which
right. Oh, this is nothing. Like, it doesn't do justice to the stuff we have on the show. And I made this little corner into my, like, what we do in the Shadows interview stuff. Like, I did the pre-show for the series this season.
Yeah.
So I made a little set. So this is kind of like the set, like, welcome to. So I mean, these were already up. Like, these, like, they're not paintings, but they're just empty frames on the wall. So they're just empty all frames, and the whole wall is covered in them. And I can just move it and, like, show you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. That looks really great. For the audio, for the people who are just listening to audio, Harvey has this amazing wall of gorgeous empty frames, but they're all like different shapes and all like carved, like, yeah,
and all from like, you know, vintage, like I went to the Rose Bowl like flea market and I painted them all myself, hand painted, and like just took them all because they were all like, you know, old and about to lose hope, and I said you could still reuse these.
I mean, I feel like there's some type of vampire-themed HGTV show in your future.
Welcome back, guys.
I feel like there's something, you know, we've been watching. First of all, let me just start by saying my wife adores you.
I adore her.
She wants me to tell you hello. She's out walking our ever-growing otterhound, Zoltar. But she wanted me to tell you hi.
Hi.
Before we I feel like we're going to have so much fun stuff to talk about. I just want to understand. So the interviews that I've seen with you, people pronounce your last name as Guillén, but there's an accent mark on the last syllable. So it's not Guillén?
It's Guillén.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are just say it wrong.
Yeah. I think it's hard. It's not a really common last name. I don't think a lot of people know a lot of Guilléns. So it's like Guillén. I remember being in school and like, you know, being mispronounced like all the time. They were just like Gulen. Gulen? Is it Gulen? And it's like, no. It's like the double L makes a y sound. And
did you grow up in Orange County? It's like, it's Southern California. People understand the double L is a Y sound.
And I know it's like, you know, but people still grew up in Southern California and they say La Cienega, you know.
Yeah, we don't. I guess technically we live in Los Angeles, but we don't say
Angeles, La Cienega.
Yeah, La Cienega. Sepúlveda.
Los Angeles, Sepúlveda.
So we don't actually say it the way it's supposed to be said. So I guess God, I don't know. We love your show so much. You're so good on it. I swear to God, if there is not an Emmy nomination this year, it will not be. I don't believe in anything anymore because the performances, your performance, everyone's performances on that show. Let me just gush about it for a second. It's so hard to take a movie that's great and then create a show that's its own identity, and somehow the show is completely its own thing and brilliant in its own way, and in no way lives in a, for lack of a better word, shadow of the movie. It's such an unbelievable feat. But the comedy choices on your show are so flawless that I am constantly like, how the fuck are they? A lot of times when you watch comedy, you can sort of track it, I see what they did. But y'all just do such an amazing job. Please tell me the show is as much fun to work on as it is to watch.
It is. It is literally the funnest show and the funnest, the chemistry with the cast is like unbelievable. Like I never had a chemistry read with Kayvon, and that could have been terribly, detrimental to the arc of these characters because we never met. And so to be on the first day on set to shoot the pilot and to know the backstory that you have been working together for 10 years as an actor and as familiar, and I was just like, whoa, this could go terribly wrong, it could go great. And I just met Kayvon within like 5 seconds. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is going to be great. And it has, and it is, and hopefully will continue to be. And I just love going to work every day. Like, it's just, these, like every single one of the cast members, they're what they bring to the table. It's like playing hot potato, but the game never ends. Like the game literally never ends. Like we had a take in the first season where the take would have been like, probably 20 seconds long for the show. And we just ran for 26 minutes. Like we just let the camera roll on a 26-minute take.
Holy shit.
They didn't say anything, and they just let it roll because it was funny, without being funny for funny,
right.
Just trying to be funny. It was just like naturally, organically being funny. And man, you'll never see that clip, and you'll never see those scenes because they're too long and the show's only, half-hour show. But it's just how lucky to be on a show that's a problem. It's like you have too much good stuff.
I'm gonna pitch a show, and maybe this is something to throw at Jemaine. But digital show called What We Cut in the Shadows, and it's just all the outtakes, shit that you couldn't use in the show. It must be such an embarrassment of riches where they're like, fuck, this is such a great joke, but it takes away from the 20-minute story that we're telling, so we have to take it out. There must be so much good stuff in there.
Yeah, it's so much like this year we welcomed so the editor who edited the film for Taika and Jemaine, she is now a director, and she directed 2 episodes this past season.
Oh, amazing.
First thing she said when she got to set, and she said, I feel like I know you guys because I see your faces all day long in the editing room because she's the editor. And she goes, and I hate that half of the stuff that people, see, the other half they'll never see. So they see half of the stuff that we did, and the other half, she's like, it's like a real Sophie's choice. Like, it's like it ends up in the editing room floor not because it's bad, it's because there's no time. Like, there's just no time. And I remember her saying that she was so devastated. She was devastated because she couldn't use everything. And so now that you pitched that show idea, actually, I think we have 5 seasons already pre-recorded.
Well, it's, structured improv is really difficult. It's such a feat because I think a lot of people think of, they'll think of, like, when they think of improv, they'll think of improv games, or it's just like, oh, you just kind of go until there's like a really strong joke and then you get out. But to improvise within the structure of a story and know that you still kind of have to land in a certain area because you have to serve the overall arc of the story and play within those boundaries. This is that's a whole other level of improv.
Yeah, it's, I've taken improv, like, my whole life. Well, not whole life, but like, growing up, I did improv but never really kind of thought that I would make a show or a career out of doing a lot of improv. And that was never my mindset, because I think when I was just starting to audition, they were just starting to like say, must be good at improv. Like that was like a note that was added in the last, like, I would say decade of like, doing film and TV and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Cause that's my jam. Like that's where I like thrive. And I love to do that. Cause I remember going to auditions where that was not like acceptable. Like it's like stick to the script. Right. It's exactly what we wrote, which I get because, a writer wants, their story being told the way they wrote it, which makes sense because that's the way the story was written. But for me, I was just like, if I can get on a show that I can just like, I know the character and I can breathe with the character and I can just improv. And this is that show. This is the show where like it's so liberating to like have, Jemaine tell us like, all right, now do how you would do it, and it's like, oh, okay, like I would do it. It's like, yeah, where we're going, we're going from A to B. So just get there. Just how would that character get there? And you get this freedom and just like, you feel like your wings are like expanding. You're like, I'm free, and it's like, I can fly. And I would say the combination of improv and scripted 50-50 is what you see in the final product for the show. That's great.
And Jemaine is such a flawless performer himself that he obviously understands. I mean, I know I've told the story on the podcast before, but the lack of ego in this sort of in the Brett and Jemaine camp of Flight of the Conchords, and how I have so much, I'm in awe and have so much respect for, when they came here to the States, they had done the BBC radio show, like they had been touring as Flight of the Conchords for years. And so when they came to the States and did the HBO show, they were so, like, they really had it down. But they never really seemed to compromise what they wanted to do in exchange for like the glitz of entertainment. Like I remember when he'd said when they got the call that the HBO show got picked up, they were like, "Good news, your HBO show got picked up." They were like, "Oh, we're eating. Can you call us back later?" Like they just don't. Like it just doesn't. They doesn't seem to make decisions based on the Hollywood machine. He really seems to make decisions based on what do I like, what do I think is funny. He was great on Legion. Like he's just someone who seems to really, and Taika, who just really find the specific thing that they love and they make the shit out of it, and it's wildly original and unique. And that is, I think, inspiring to have that level of knowledge about your kind of comedy voice.
Yeah, I was just talking to Jemaine about this, that I'm always in awe. Like he's so talented, and just watching him direct, he's also an amazing writer, but he's a great performer. Like, I always have to like double take when I see him in something that I didn't know he was in, because his characters are so like, all the stuff that he's played, like it's just like, oh, that's Jemaine. And it's like, even if I hear his voice in like a, animation or something, I'd be like, wait, is that? It's like, that is, it's like one of those moments where like, that's a great thing for an actor where like, they're so great and a chameleon, they just like transform into different characters that you never know that's the actor playing that character. It's always the character. I know with Taika as well, like they're just so brilliant. And, you're right about the whole thing. They don't really go by the Hollywood rules. Like I remember, when I got the audition to be a part of this by accident, I went to a wine and cheese night, and I met someone at the wine and cheese night who's, they were Garrett Bash's fiance at the moment, and they were like, "You're really funny." The next day she texted me, she got my number from the host, and I was like, I don't know who this person is, but okay. And it's like, I'm really good. Like I was like, I'll go with the flow. It's like, and apparently they were moving quickly. They've auditioned for 3 months, and this is early January 2 years ago. And they were in London auditioning for Guillermo's and for the vampires. And at the last minute, I swooped in audition, and they said, "Yeah, you're going to test." And I was like, "Great, I'm going to test." And then weeks went by, and I didn't test. And I kept getting this phone call from like a 16-digit number on a Sunday, and it was MLK weekend. And it was a holiday on a Monday. And so I was like, who keeps calling me on a Sunday? And it's this number. I'm not going to answer it. And then finally, my sister, after I was with my sister, she said, "Just pick up the fucking phone." And I was like, I don't know who it is. Like, just pick up the fucking phone. And I picked up the phone, and I was like, "Hello." I was like, "Hey, is this Harvey?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Hey, it's Jemaine Taika. You auditioned for us, and you're Guillermo." And I was like, "Oh, I'm testing for you, Mr. Waititi. I'm going to test." He's like, "No, we'll see you on set."
Holy shit.
And I had to call my agents and tell them that I booked it.
That makes me love them even more, because they must understand that certain parts of the traditional process aren't always necessary. It's like, do we really have to, like, we know we like these people. Do we have to just do this dance where we put them in a room so executives can sit there with their arms folded and go, Although I do have to say, the folks at FX seem pretty great. Like, they seem...
No, FX has been really cool. And like you're right about that. They're one of the few networks that I worked for that they know what the creative team is doing, and they give them pretty much the freedom. So it's like, they knew that Taika and Jemaine, had this vision, and they had done it before with the film, and it was just they let them go with it. And it's just like, it's great to have that, because the final product is what you see, and people are like, how come this is so cool and different and it feels so fresh? And it's like, because there's not that many like people overshadowing each other and telling too many chefs in the kitchen telling like, no, well, I think it's like, let them do what they know what they're doing, and the final product will, and the final product we trust.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because what can happen a lot is when there are so many cooks in the kitchen, everyone's got to give a note so they can be like, well, I did my job, I gave a note. And they're like, well, was that note necessary, or was it, necessary for you to look like you're doing something? And
I'm busy. See, I'm busy. Type.
I'm typing. See, you're just slapping your hands on the keyboard.
I have a note. These aren't even my real hands.
Look, I'm working. You're not even articulating. You're just clawing.
I think one of those things is a hook. No, it's not.
That's not even attached to anything. Your keyboard's not plugged in. What the fuck? But everyone just wants to look busy and wants to kind of like, look, see, I'm contributing, but it just seems like time and time again, some of the best and most original things are the things where the creative team that was hired is entrusted to be the creative team and to carry out their vision. I know it doesn't always work, but I do feel like the majority of time when something so fresh and original like your show comes along, it's like, oh yeah, because the creative team, it was kind of intact, like they got to make it the way that they envisioned it.
Yeah, I'm, and like you said earlier, it was kind of a little intimidating. I hadn't seen the film yet. I had heard about it, and it was on queue to watch on my Amazon, and I waited till it was on Amazon. I was like, I'm going to watch this. And I'm glad I didn't watch it until after I auditioned, because I was so like, this is brilliant. Like, this is so good. And then I was like a little bit intimidated. I was like, oh no. I was like, oh God, I hope I did it good enough. And I was like, oh no. It's like, because this is so great. But you're right about there are two different things in the same world, but they're two different worlds. It's like 2 in 1, and it's so nice because we have our own werewolves, and we have our own witches, and we have necromancers, and like all that, and trolls, and so there's all these things happening at the same time all over the world. There's also like the spin-off in New Zealand as well, and so like it's just Paranormal Activity, or Wellington Paranormal. Sorry.
I didn't even know about that. There's a spin-off of this show in New Zealand?
Well, no, the original movie had, remember those cops that were like...
Oh, right.
So they got a spin-off. The cops have their own show. It's called Wellington Paranormal. So like it's...
Holy shit. I got to fucking turn on the VPN and make my computer think I'm in New Zealand so I can... Is it available in the States, Wellington?
I think Jemaine had mentioned it was probably going to come to the States soon, but you could probably do the TV thing. But it's literally New Zealand, and it's on its second season, and it was a spinoff. So there's all these like stories that are going all over the world. So at the same time, we're happening. Shadows, the movie happened, but also there's Wellington, happening. So it's nice to know that there's maybe in the future all of these might cross into each other's world.
A universe. There's a freaking universe.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm glad that first we're a little. Well, I was a little worried that people were going to try to compare us to the movie, and obviously, you don't want to touch something that's so precious to people, because we're not trying to replace like mom and dad. Like we come in and we're like, no, I'm just like, we're like the cousin, and like we're just visiting at the barbecue. We're not trying to replace your dad. You're not trying to replace your mom. It's like I'm just the cool uncle visiting. It's like it's fun, and so I'm really glad that the audience really kind of has taken to the show and really loved it the way that it is, and it's its own thing, and accepting it as its own thing. Well,
it's because I really do think something that's just for comedy's sake can work, but that missing element is the sort of the heart of the story. Like, they are a dysfunctional family, and at the core of it, as awful as everyone is to each other, they really are, or they're at least codependent, but they at least get, but everyone, there's really something sweet about the relationship of the show, even as toxic as they can be with each other. And particularly, your relationship, it's like, there is definitely, I mean, would you say it's sort of like a father and son, but also sort of,
it's
I don't know.
A combination of things. I always compare it to like people ask me, what's your relationship? What is happening there? Because sometimes it's like, it's been through a lot. It's been, what you just said. And also feel like sometimes it feels like Mr. Burns and Smithers instances. And sometimes it feels like, Annie and Daddy Warbucks traveling, touring company.
Yes.
But it's also, there's so many emotions that go with that because we have to remember that Guillermo's the only human. And as humans, what makes us different from vampires, as the research that I've done, is that we have emotions and we're human and we're goal oriented and we have aspirations, and it's all these things that Guillermo has to go through because the vampires, I mean, what's 10 years to them,
Right.
They're, and what's 10 years to a mortal,
Right.
Like for a more, it's like, please hurry up. Like my clock is ticking, and I want to like become a vampire at a young, beautiful age where I can at least, feel great and powerful. And like, and I feel like for Guillermo, his like trajectory in the last few seasons has been like a roller coaster of emotions because he's discovering who he is or what he wants to be, what he thought he was meant to be, but maybe he's meant to do something else. And all a while not keeping a secret from his housemates who he loves. He loves these houses. He protects them, literally kills a whole vampiric council for them. And even at the end of killing a vampiric council, the only thing that comes out of their mouth is like, I don't give a shit what your name is. We have to get our own dry cleaning. And it's like the idea that I just killed your assassins, that we're going to kill you, and you don't even care.
They don't, and I do think there's something that's really almost this science of the kind of narcissism of infinite time, right? Where they don't. Yeah, of course. It's like that idea that they wouldn't really be able to value anything because everything is kind of like. So many things are sort of meaningless to them that they just don't have to. It is interesting, the idea, not to get all dumb about like what's supposed to be a fun comedy show, but the idea that if time really were infinite, what would you value? And if you had, like, if you were basically a time billionaire, would you kind of be that way? Because it's like, oh, I don't know. It's like, in 10 years, it'll be something else. I don't care. This is all like, they've just seen so much and they've lived through so much and they have all this power. And so, are they just sort of empty inside because, and
yeah.
they are, like sort of bored and really only curious about dumb things because like, that's just their existence.
Yeah, and they could be jaded by, like, exactly like you said, like they could be jaded by like centuries of like having immortality, and they've lived through it, and it's like another century. Bring a book.
Yeah.
That boredom to like someone like who's a human who longs for that. It's always like the idea of like the grass is always greener. You know what I mean? Like there's been like times where like, oh man, I would give anything to live in Hawaii, because it's beautiful and paradise. And then you could be in paradise, but after 3 weeks, you're like, yeah, I could go visit somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, because that's the mentality of like people, you always long to want something. And once you get it, then and what happens? Are you content, or you go like, this is nice, but now I want that. It's like you're always trying to one up yourself to like, make your goal and aspiration like a little bit higher. So that's the danger, I guess, in humans. We're like literally always with that. And once you become a vampire, you're like, well, what am I aspiring to be? I'm amazing. I'm sexy. I drink blood. I have orgies. I think I'm good. It's like, what are your goals?
Nothing can really hurt me.
Nothing can hurt me.
But the idea that the grass is always greener thing is really funny because I was talking to someone about it and I said, yeah, but the thing about the grass is always greener. It may be greener on the other side of the fence, but the one thing that's not different is you. So you will still be you on the other side of that fence. Like that grass isn't gonna make you different.
Yeah.
You're gonna be you. So that is, I think that's always the thing with most sort of vampire lore, or at least sort of contemporary modern vampire lore is, make me a vampire, make me a vampire. Bite. Oh my God, I wish I weren't a vampire. Like there's
Why did you do this to me? Why did you make me a vampire?
Yeah, exactly. You said you wanted. I. How could I have known?
It was a metaphor. I wasn't serious.
You don't. You just don't understand me. That's like interviewing the movie interview with a vampire, where he makes him a vampire, and then within a week they're just skulking around that mansion in New Orleans. It's like,
yeah, it's like, isn't this what you wanted? It's like, yeah, when I thought it was cool. It looked cooler in the broshure. Now when I'm here, I'm like, ugh.
Oh, you're right. It's like, oh, Hawaii looks great. Oh my God, I got eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Jellyfish stung. Oh gosh.
Oh, God, I didn't know. Well, that was I was watching a Twilight Zone episode last night, as I often do when I wake up at 3 a.m. It was the one where this old couple runs this junk shop and they find a genie in the bottle and he grants their wishes. And of course, it's this sort of, like every wish has a consequence and goes horribly wrong. And the genie, they say, you're just a con man. And he's like, I'm not. Everything comes with a consequence. And we never think about consequences when we're idealizing like what one thing we think is finally going to make our lives perfect, and it's like, everything has a consequence. Nothing is flawless.
But I do love that, for Guillermo, I feel like he's the audience. Like we all go on this journey with him because we can only relate to him. We can only relate to him and be like, well, what that like, or people, always message me and they're like, I hate the way they treat you. If that was me, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. And I was like, see, everyone's been there. Everyone's been at a job that they hate and they hate their a boss, or they've been in a relationship where one person is fully committed and the other person's like, I'm okay. And it's like, it's not even Stevens. It's like there's so many different metaphors to like the relationship that Guillermo and Nandor have, that so many humans can, relate to and compare themselves to, where it'd be like romantic, or employee boss relationship, or even like an agent and, client or something. Everyone can relate to the characters because the dynamic of that has been done for so many years all over the world. So everyone can be like, I've been there, was totally in love with my boss and they didn't know it. And I couldn't be with them because, the corporation.
Well, but also like, I feel like, Guillermo there are these little subtle sort of looks to the camera where it almost sort of feels like Guillermo is saying like, you're seeing this, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly.
I'm not crazy. You see what I fucking go through. You're seeing this, right? Is someone seeing this?
I'm glad that you said that because that's exactly why I look to the camera when I'm in Guillermo mode, because he won't verbalize what he's thinking because he can't. Remember, he gets demerits for speaking out of turn, speaking out loud. So he can't afford to add another year of being a familiar to his like already long list of years. So whenever they say something that's stupid and ridiculous, instead of answering what we're all thinking, he just looks at the camera like, you saw this, right? Like, this is ridiculous. And you heard this, right? Like, this is just not me. But he can't say it. And then, if you notice on, season 2, you start seeing that he's two different people when he's around the mosquito collectors and those group of people and the camera crew. And he's always different when he's around the camera crew on Confessionals 101. And when he's at work, Guillermo's totally different. He's submissive. He's like, he's obedient. And like, those are there's small little differences in Guillermo as like the season progresses that if you look, he's a little bit different when he, the way that he acts when he's different groups of parties.
And the truth of the matter is they wouldn't survive without him. Like they clearly would have been killed multiple times if Guillermo hadn't been there. So he's basically the underappreciated
underdog.
And the heart and soul of it. But I love what you were talking about before about how he has this one idea for his path. And what is starting to reveal itself, without giving too much away for people who aren't caught up, is that his true path might be something else that he seems like he's resistant to, but might be kind of embracing. It'd be interesting to see in season 3 how that is all going to play out, how season 2 ended. But that idea of thinking you want something, and then really starting to come to grips with like, oh, I may have evolved. I don't know if that's me anymore, or this might actually be what I should be doing. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think that, I think we've all been there where we have an idea and a goal set for ourselves that we, how our life's going to look. And people do that all the time. I remember like in high school, I would have friends who had already planned out their life. Like they're like, I'm going to be married by the time I'm 25. I'm going to have my first kid by the time I'm 28. And I was like, you don't know that. It's like, I do know that, Harvey. I do. And it's like, okay. And it's like, but people plan because it's something to look forward to, right? And when life throws you curveballs, you're like, this isn't what I planned. What's going on? And it's like this. Why does God hate me? It's like, no, I think that it's just like the universe maybe directing you in a different way, and right. I remember that, like really wanting something really bad or wanting a certain role that I was like, oh, this is my role. I really want it and not getting it and then being heartbroken and then looking at the final product and be like, ugh. And I was like, oh my God, thank God I didn't get that because it like the way that the whole production and the overall, product came out, I was like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Like in my head, I convinced myself that this is what I wanted. And then the universe is like, no, you don't. And it's like, no, I do, bitch. No, you don't. It's like,
yeah. And if you had gotten one of those crappy things that you were heartbroken about, you would not be on like the best comedy on television.
Yes. Right now, so. And I was thinking about that too, because there was a project that I got on for, and I was like, oh, this is so brilliant. It was right before I auditioned for this. And I was like, oh my God, and it's a series regular and like yada, yada, yada. And then I didn't get it. And I was like, oh man. And then it left this window open. This happened like the week after I went for the audition. And then I booked this and got this and then looked at that project and the pilot was made and it never went anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I would have been out of the running for this. And then, it's like everything happens for a reason and it's all kismet. And I'm a big believer in that.
No, because this business is, well, the world is out of control at the moment. Like this sort of security bubbles that everyone, like, oh, I can just go around and go to a restaurant. Like even just going to restaurants, like that security, like everything's upended right now. And so the entertainment business is a much smaller, less important version of that, where we have no control over how any of it works. And the only way to really emotionally survive it is to be able to just, not that you don't mourn things. Of course, sometimes you want something that doesn't work out or whatever, and it can be a bummer. But you really have to get good at just being like, for whatever reason, this didn't work out, and everything will change tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah,
I think that's a big lesson for, a lot of actors and or artists in general, just because we're not used to that. Like growing up, you're free spirited and you're like wanting to like create and whatnot. But then when it becomes a business and like going to auditions, like I feel, that actors hear more no's in 1 week than most people will hear in a lifetime. Yeah. Because you constantly hear no for like, I have a pitch idea. No, we're good. Or I have an audition. You didn't get it. You got a call back, but you didn't get, so you hear no's a lot. And so it's not for the weak of heart. And, you have to have a thick skin to be in this industry, I feel like, because right. You have to look at it like, okay, it was no today, but it might be yes tomorrow. And that can get hard after a while. It's like, I know, and I'm sure like tons of friends who like are always hitting the pavement, auditioning for stuff. And, sometimes they get a break and they're on a show for a short period and then it's slow again. But that's the business, right? So what you got to do is, I feel like, create content like for yourself and create work.
Yes. And now you can, because there was a time like when I started in this business,
back in my day, Suki Sales and I used to have a show.
Back in the analog times, you couldn't, you couldn't just go out and make stuff. It was very expensive. It was very difficult to do that. And now people can. And so it is the idea of like pursuing stuff because you love it or doing things. And that's one of the things that I respect so much about Jemaine and Taika, is that they really seem to do stuff for themselves. And especially like, yes, Brett and Jemaine are technically, they toured as comedians, as a comedy, but it never felt like they needed the audience to love them so much. And every time I saw them perform, they killed, but they never felt thirsty about it, and it just felt like, hey, this is the thing that we've worked on. This is the stuff that we do, hope you like it. Like there was just always a, I don't know, there's a lot of desperation behind it. And right. That I think is that's such a wonderful thing to achieve.
Yeah, because they put what they believe in and out, and if you either accept it or you don't, they probably have no regrets. They put exactly what they felt this was and all their creativity into it, and either you accept it or you don't. And then at that moment, it's out of your hand. It's out of their hands. Like it's on you if you like it or not. but they know that they did the product the way to the best of their ability they wanted. That's what I love about the shows, that when we shot the pilot, I remember thinking, if this doesn't get picked up, that'll be a shame. But if it doesn't get picked up, I will feel so proud of just the pilot, because it was such like one of those moments where you're like, I feel like we put everything that we have, as a team together on that, presentation. And it's out of our hands. So at the end of the day, the network could have been like, we're not picking it up, it's because their beliefs and their what they see it, and then they didn't like it. But it's one of those few moments as an actor where you're like, I'm proud of what we did and it's great, Well, actually not one of the few moments. I mean, that happens a lot, but you want to be proud of everything that you do and just put your best foot forward, and hopefully somebody likes it and then they pick it up.
Well, and if for whatever reason it hadn't gotten picked up, I guarantee you that, Taika or Jemaine or other people who worked on the thing would go work on something else and go, you know what? Harvey was so great in the show and it's such a bummer that it didn't get picked up. Let's put him in this. Or, hey, I saw that pilot you did. That sucks that it didn't get picked up. It was so good. Why don't you come be in this other thing?
Right.
You just don't ever know,
No.
There's so much that is out of our field of vision that we just don't know, how the universe is working. So
yeah, and you're really good at that.
I'm proud of it.
You're really good at working with people. Like, we work with the original costume designer from the movie. We work with the same DP. We work with the same, Kristen Shaw came back and she worked with them on Flight of the Conchords, and like they work with people that they worked with before. Matt Berry and Jemaine had worked on something. That's how he got the idea, to ask Matt to be in it. Because I think Matt was the only one that the character was written for. Like that was already agreed. Like he was playing that character, and all the other characters were up for grabs. And so like they do a good job of working with people they want to work with and continue that relationship, not just on this project but in future projects. So yeah, you're right. You never know. You just absolutely never know.
Yeah, and comedy is a little specific in the sense that like, look, if I do have jokes that I do in my stand-up act that some of them. Like there are a couple that they don't kill, but I like them, so I do them for me. Like I wouldn't do a bunch of jokes that people didn't like or weren't enjoying because I just feel like, oh, well, that's not fun for anybody.
It's for me.
Yeah, but I do hope that people now in our kind of commodified like heart button culture don't compromise the types of things that they think are fun or funny or that they like. Because if something gets a few less likes than something else, like, this was a failure. It's like, no, if you really loved it and you enjoyed doing it, that doesn't mean that it wasn't successful. It just means this other thing got more, and for whatever reason, this got less. But please don't abandon this chasing. I guess that's what I'm saying. I hope people don't abandon their sort of artistic ideals to just chase likes, which is such an easy trap to fall in.
No, you're right. I agree with you 100%. It should be like, create what you think is, like you just said. I say those jokes for me because I think they're funny. I like them. Yeah. And then you hopefully find someone that thinks they're funny too. It's like, just do it for you and do what you think is funny. And hopefully someone jumps on the wagon and be like, yeah, I do think that's funny as well. Because I do.
Yeah. But comedy is also a relationship in your audience. So it's like, I do think there's a certain element of like knowing when to, I should probably let this go because it just isn't, But if you really in your gut really believe in something and you feel strongly about it and it's like, no, I know this is funny or I know this is good, I know this is, then I don't know. I would hope that a lot of good artists aren't being washed away by like chasing, and aren't being diluted by, because you're never going nothing is for everybody, like,
right.
Nothing is for everybody. So I don't know. Are you still doing your podcast for the show, or do you only do that while the episodes are airing?
So I do that only for the show's on the air. We only started this season, and it was kind of a last minute thing. It's called Before the Shadows because we would do it an hour before the East Coast premiere every Wednesday. And it started off as like I'm just gonna add, go on Instagram Live and add people who are my friends and like the show or have been on the show. I had Haley Joel Osment on the first one, and the next a couple of days later they're like, when's the next one? Next week? And it's like, oh, I hadn't planned on doing it. It was like a one-time premiere thing. And then I realized because that in the place that we are and have been the last couple of months, people were really eager to have content in front of them and stories and BTS of like the show. And so then I was like, you know what? I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to do it, but I'm going to do it full out. It's like, so yeah. I did it and we, got a website, beforetheshadows.com. And, we stream simultaneously at the same, like with Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So you can stream it anywhere in those platforms at the same time. So it's kind of like a cool show that you can, tune in every Wednesday. And if you miss the show, because, the time zone, people are like in Australia or whatnot around the world, in London, they're like, I can't watch it because it's at 4 a.m. at my time. And I was like, that's okay. I'll go straight to a website. And you can go to the website and all the episodes are there. So that was all done with like me just having that time available, and it was a lot of work. And I had my sister come on board and help produce it, and we would have a company meeting on a Monday and like talk about our guests that week and pull up clips of that guest past work and do a little montage of their work. And we had Doug Jones, and Doug Jones' career, it was just like, it's still it's just like so much stuff, so it was just nice to like just do it for the fans. And I would love to do it again next year.
What else do you want to, like, what do you want to do? Like, do you have sort of like a broad sweeping, like, I want to try to do this kind of thing and this kind of thing and these kind of roles and write this kind of thing and direct this? Like, what is your, what does your dream board look like?
Yeah, I feel like I want to do, I like putting on different hats, and like I just recently started producing stuff, and being a producer is a totally different, role, and making sure that everyone's there, everyone's like paid on time, like all that stuff is like, whoa. So it makes me appreciate when I do get a role as an actor, because I know how hard everyone's working to make it work, And so I've done everything. Like I've been like, writing, producing, acting. And so like, it's just, I want to do like the whole thing, I want to do like everything possible, but I want to create more. So I'm like, writing and pitching shows right now with my writing partner, Jamie Holt. And it's just nice to put on different hats. And the way that I always make fun of us working together with my writing partner is that I can't get the actor out of me. So when we're writing, like I have to act out the scene. So then it's like, and then he comes in the door and he goes like, what are you doing here? And then she goes, no, please. And then it's like, I knew it. And it's like, I have to like do it in the voice, and then she won't have it any other way. So even when she writes like her pages and stuff, she goes like, okay, let's have a read through. And then it's just me playing all the parts. It's just like, well, when I wrote it, I thought you were going to say it like this. So it's kind of funny to, but it works. It works because, you gotta be able to know what everyone's job is on set to be able to try to do everyone's job, and try to create that piece of work. And so I actually commend everyone who does it like seamlessly, because people I know are who are producers and slash, also do acting and writing, like they can do it all. So that's the goal for me, is like, I want to do everything.
And do you envision when everything sort of starts to normalize a bit, do you envision a calendar where you are an actor on this show for a few months, then you jump over and you're producing and writing something else, and then you jump over and then you're, I don't know, making a podcast? Like, do you want to sort of spread out your year and kind of do a different thing each time? Is that would that kind of be the ideal?
Yeah. And it's funny that you said that, because that's kind of the way that it's been scheduled out by accident. Actually, this last season was on my hiatus of season 1 and between season 1 and 2. I produced The Filth, which is this web series, and it's really cool, and all the lead characters are queer, and like it was just nice because I also want to create content that's not being created. It's like there's not a lot of content for queer characters, and so I want to create that. And then also in that same line, writing for people of color, and so writing projects that really resonate with me, and also give the opportunity, because there's always been, as we all know, there's always been a gap between that opportunity for people of color and people who are queer and transgender. And it's just like, there's so many talented people out there who have to fight that obstacle of just given the opportunity. And so for me, it was a mission that if I'm working on something as an actor and I, got a job and it's steady and I'm working, then I want to create content for my fellow, lesbians and artists who haven't been seen yet.
That's such a beautiful way to use the sort of the position that you're getting now, is be able to create not just content that you want to see, but content that is really important for society, like really important for culture, and to elevate other voices that don't get to be elevated. And that, I mean, when you sort of someday, whatever, 50 years from now, when you look back at your career and you look back and you're like, wow, I really did something that was meaningful, and not just pursue a career as an actor just for myself, or just try to win awards for myself. Like the fact that
Right.
you're already trying to create stuff for other people, to elevate other people. Like this to me sounds like you're on such an amazing path. And I don't know, I'm very excited to see what the next 5 years will look like for you, because especially because what we do in the shadows, I really do think season 3 is usually about the time when something really tips, and people already know what it is, but I just mean like when it really becomes a thing is usually around, season 3 of The Simpsons, around season 3 of like Rick and Morty. Like there are early adopters who know, and then everyone else catches on. And I think that's where Shadows is. And so I think you're going to have a lot more options and a lot more opportunities. So I love that you're already figuring out how to use that responsibly.
Yeah. And it's also funny that you said that, because at the same time, like you said, you're doing this and using your platform for, trying to create content and uplift other artists as well. But at the same time, you're on your own, journey of like, someone just brought the attention to me. We're talking about the Emmys and stuff. And they're like, that'd be great if the show, I want to get the show nominated first and foremost. And they're like, but if you get the nomination for supporting actor, you'll be the first Latinx person to ever be nominated.
Oh my gosh.
Category. And I said, that can't be true. I was like, no, like your full Latinx, like both my parents are from Mexico, and also the fact that you're queer. Like it has never been done. And I was like, and in the history, and it's like, that's insane. Like I was like, the idea of just like the Latinx, like I was like, we've come this far and we've never nominated someone who, it was like, that's crazy, but I think that like the closest we got was like Fred Armisen was nominated in 2016, and his mom's like from Venezuela, I think it is. Yeah. But like, it was just like, it blew my mind that it has been no other, it's like that blew my mind. And I was like, that's crazy. So as much as I'm doing like work to try to create work, it's also like, I'm on this journey of like, wow, there's still so many doors that I have to kind of get through, just myself, just to like another step further. And so it blew my mind, and I was like crazy. So FYC.
Well, it would be very well deserved. I really hope it happens. But the more like when your water level rises, it will raise all of the things that you want to do, and it will raise all of the opportunities for other people as well. And so it's, again, it's just amazing that you're already planning and thinking and writing and trying to make sure that you can manifest these things. So, I mean, I have very little doubt that you'll do it. I think eventually it'll just sort of, like the thing that you'll really have to wrestle with is like, which thing do I devote my time to? Because you'll have these moments where you have a lot of options at once, but you only have so much energy in your body. So how do you responsibly, how can you delegate? How can you make sure that everything is being serviced properly and with care and with love? And so it's like that will be, that's also for like the next 5 years would be interesting to sort of see that evolution process too. You should definitely come on the podcast every so often if you want to just sort of, I really want to check in. I'm very invested in your career. So, so I would love to see how it all, because it's going to be such a unique journey now, like as a content,
like the whole trajectory of it.
Yeah. As a creator as well as an actor, and the balance of those things and being able to do all of it.
Yeah. I mean, with the time that we shoot the show, like, we shoot one episode in 4 days.
Oh my gosh.
So we shoot the show in a little bit under 3 months. So it's kind of we cram it in, but it's actually great because then we have 9 months out of the year to do anything we want to do, So we actually go to work for 3 months straight, and it's like 15-hour days, nonstop working. And then when you're done, you sleep for like 2 weeks. You sleep for like 2 weeks and you're exhausted. But then when you come to, you realize I have 9 months to do other projects, create, write, produce. So it's like the best gig. It's like a blessing. It's like we get to create such great work and a really compact, time and then have the rest of the year to devote to other projects.
Have they announced a season 3 yet? Or
yeah, we were picked up for season 3.
Okay. Yeah, I would be shocked if I assumed that was the case.
No, we got picked up. I think right now we're trying to figure out where or when we could shoot because of the state of the world, and how to do it safely, because it's different. Everyone's been giving out those requirements for different studios and manuals of like how to proceed with like shooting. It's like, oh, well, it'd be great if actors did their own hair and makeup and stuff, but we're like a show with a lot of prosthetics. They have the fangs, they have hair, they have pasty skin, they also have trolls and witches and all these things that people need to work on. So I don't know if there's like a how-to video on how to make yourself a witch with prosthetics and do it right.
Yeah, and there's also so many, there's so many there's so many crew folks who it's like, how do it's such a business of proximity, it's like people, especially if it's not like a massive $200 million production, everyone's really clustered together. You're sort of moving around, especially if you're moving around and shooting an episode in a couple of days, like to do that from a distance, how can we keep our hair and makeup people employed and the lighting people and the sound people, and how can we keep everyone safely employed? How do we reconfigure a business that is sort of built on everyone's just smushed together in a small space for 15 hours, like you said, and then that's it. And hopefully we'll figure it out. Like some productions are starting to go back and kind of testing the waters, but it's still a bit of a question mark at this point.
Yeah, so I think right now we're like on the standstill, which is okay. Rather be safe than sorry. And
right.
But I think we'll figure it out. I think we're we're just resilient as like human beings, and we always find a way. So we adapt, and we'll just adapt.
That's the improv in you, like the improv people are so good at adapting. I mean, those you don't just learn improv and then not unconsciously take it out into life. Like that's what you're trained to do. Is you're trained to think fast, make left and right turns, pivot, take something and make it work. And that training must follow you into the world.
It does. And I feel like the whole idea, and this is like, kind of, it goes without saying, the yes and it's just much easier to, be optimistic and glass half full, as opposed to, because you can drown in a cup of water, if you choose to, if you allow yourself to. And so you make the choice and the conscious choice to be positive and optimistic, and it's just better. It is better that way. And things, you'll feel better at the end, and things will work out the way they're going to work out, and you'll feel better.
Well, and not only that, but if you can figure out how to cultivate a yes and mentality, you will also see opportunities that you may not have seen otherwise, if you were sulking and your head was down and you weren't looking forward.
Oh yeah. I've made a career actually out of doing roles that weren't right for me, because I remember doing, I had just done an audition for The Internship, the movie with Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson, and I knew that character wasn't right for me. Like I knew it wasn't right for me, even though I could make it my own. I was like, I'm just going to go in there and do it how I would do it. Mm-hmm. And I did. And the director knew, Sean Levy was there, and like, who's, gone and produced like everything, like Stranger Things and like, everything. And so like, he just was laughing on the floor, hysterically laughing. And I felt good about the audition, but I knew I didn't get the part. Like, I just knew that I didn't get it, but I was like, he was laughing on the floor and I did my job, and I left, and I was optimistic. I was like, well, he liked it. Sure enough, a couple weeks later, I was in New Orleans shooting something else, and they called and they said that he wrote a part for me in the film.
Oh man, that's amazing.
He wrote the part for me in the film, and I was like, great. He's like, it's a small part. It's like 2 lines. And blah, blah. I was like, oh, cool. I'll just fly to Atlanta and come back and finish this film here in New Orleans. And they're like, no. He wants you there for 2 months. And I was like, for 2 lines? And it's like, because you're now part of the villain team, but you're the only good guy in the villain team. I was like, oh, wow. And so if you look at the movie, I'm in the whole movie, but I don't say a word until the end.
But that is, like there was an opportunity that, in the wrong hands, someone could have told, oh, this is dumb. I shouldn't go up for this. I'm never going to get this. Or I'll try to force myself to do what I think they want.
Yeah.
And you sort of embracing, like, this is who I am. This is what I would do with this. This is what I believe in. I mean, that's a really bold move,
It's kind of gone me through my whole career, because the same thing happened with Guillermo. Guillermo was 20 years older. So when I met this person at a wine and cheese party, and the next day she said, "Sure, for my fiance's new show," I looked at the script and I was like, he's 20 years older. And he's just like, oh, yeah. It's like, well, do it your way. And so I wasn't even right for Guillermo. He was 20 years older than I am. And it's like, he was not right for me. And I went in there and I was like, I have to go in there, because my mentality was I wanted to meet Allison Jones, casting director.
Right.
I got in for her and I was like, I have to meet her. I love everything. The Office, Bridesmaids, like you name it. Like she's cast everything that I love. And so I went to the office, like, gonna meet Allison Jones. And then I was like, I'm here to meet Allison. And they're like, she's not here. She's not here. And I was like, no. And they're like, Mr. Guillén. And I was like, sorry, no. And so I auditioned with Ben, who's wonderful, the casting associate there. And I just remember that I didn't care at that moment. I was like, I'm just going to do what I think Guillermo would be like at my age and at my current state and everything. And I just remember when I did it, I didn't remember the audition. I just remember looking at Ben. He goes, you're done. And I was like, oh, sorry, thank you. And I walked out. He goes, Harvey, wait. And I was like, oh, he's going to say I did a great job. The microphone. So I've done a career out of like going for parts that are not right for me. Like, and it just always happens. It's just the way that things work out. But I go in every time, even if the role's not right for me, quote unquote, I go in and make it for me and make it the best that I can to my ability.
And the thing that's really genius about that is, I mean, not only do you just feel more connected to what you're doing and you can be proud of your work, and like those are obviously very important things, but also, from their point of view, they're probably watching a ton of people go in and try to do what they think the producers want to see. And so they see the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so when you go in and you have such a strong take on a character, it must be refreshing for them to be like, oh my God, like, even if they're like, well, this wasn't right for this particular role, but holy shit, you got to surprise us and you got to bring us something new and give us a bit of fresh air from this kind of sameness that we had been seeing over and over and over again. If it doesn't work out for this, we're going to keep our eye on you. And then this, write something for you or immediately call you in for something else,
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is, were you always that way?
I feel like there was a moment where I did a switch, because when I first started auditioning, I would try to do that. I was trying to like, oh, it says that he's this and that and blah, blah. And I was trying to fit what a mold was that Hollywood is, placing. And then it was pretty early on in my career that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fucking fit a mold. Not in my, not in my body, not in my mind. I'm not going to fit a mold. I know I'm not fitting someone else's mold. So that's when I decided that I'm already a mold. This is who I am. This is what I'm presenting. So wherever I go into a room, you either want to work with this mold and this person and this character, or you don't. And then at the end of the day, that's okay, because there's different products out there and you can go buy the one you want and like hire the one you want. But this is all I have to offer. And so either you want to work with it and you love it, or you don't. And that's okay. So I had to learn early on to, because, being, Latinx, being, short and stout, like these were all like what past professors that I had would actually say were all strikes against me.
Oh, man.
And to hear that these were strikes when in reality, these were all my strengths.
Right.
And so to hear that, because my professors have been taught by Hollywood and old Hollywood what the mold was. Right. And I remember having a person who was like, are you going to lose the weight a little bit? And it was like, and having a discussion about me, he's like, because if you lose a little bit, like you'd be a leading man. And I was like, I feel like I can be a leading man now.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's like, because traditionally that's what they have been told by Hollywood. And so what's happening now is there's a shift where like, it's like, you can see leading men be a little, extra pounds on them. And what is extra pounds? What is an average body? What is a normal, a height? skin color? Like, what are these things that you're making a traditional way of seeing a star, an actor on TV must look like this? It's like we've been fooled to think that that's the way things are supposed to look because someone allowed it. So now it's time to reclaim that and reshape the mold.
Well, that's a beautiful statement, and also I think it should hopefully make people realize, like, it's not about fitting that aesthetic mold, but a leading character is a strong character. It's a character who, knows who they are, has resolve and strength, and that's those are the leading, those are the magnetic qualities, and you have that, and you've cultivated that, and so you absolutely can do those things, and you're proving it, and I hope that it shows other people, performers, like, don't worry about, like, people are always going to be quick to tell you what you can't do. Oh, it's not going to work. But it's like, you don't have to listen to that. You can listen to you and take all those things that people might say, like you said, or strikes against you. It's like, no, that's what makes you special. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you strong. That's what makes you interesting, And I hope that people realize that, that they are just unique and special the way that they are,
Yep, absolutely.
What are you going to do now with the next few months? Are you continuing to write? And
I am writing. I am working. I'm writing right now, but I'm also working. I started a new project doing an animated series. So I'm doing voice recording for that, which is really safe. And I go into the studio and the door opens and no one's in the hallways and no one's in the building, and you go straight to your room and it's been sanitized. You bring your own headphones, you put on your headphones, and the director pops up on a TV and the engineer is behind the glass window, and you never, have to interact with anyone physically, and you do your recording and then go home.
Yeah, animation right now is a real sweet gig because like the artists can work from home and you can do voiceover. Technically, you could do it from your home. And so that's a great, well, are you allowed to say what you're working on, the animated show you're working on?
Not yet, but It's pretty cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, you've gotten to work on some great stuff. We were fans of The Magicians too.
Oh yeah, that was another story. I auditioned for that. I was in Toronto filming a movie, and my then manager said, "Hey, put yourself on tape for this. They're having a producer session and a light tomorrow for Magicians." And it shoots in Vancouver. And I said, "Cool." And I was like, I put myself on tape, and then he called me right back and said, "You know what? They said forget it. They have options in LA, so they'll think about you for something else." I was like, "No, but I'm really right. I think I'm right for this role." And I said, "Wait, they shoot in Vancouver. That means by SAG regulations, they have to have an office in Vancouver." And so I was like, "Can I go audition for the office there?" And he's like, "Of course you would think of that." So he got me an appointment to the Vancouver office, and I go into the Vancouver office, audition, and they sent the tape to the producers, which over the heads of the casting directors in LA, and they had to call the casting office in LA and be like, "We found a guy in Vancouver." And they go, "Oh, really? Who?" And they're like, "Harvey Guillén." And they're like, "Oh," and they had just told me not to audition.
That's hilarious. I mean, again, it's like I think sometimes when people come into this business, they think like, I'm going to get an agent and then everything's going to be great. And then they're just going to send me out. But as many successful people as I've had the privilege of talking to, one of the common denominators is most of them like, yeah, you fucking have to like take a bit of charge and you have to create the opportunities and you have to kind of make your own luck and you have to make the things that you want to see. And that it rarely just happens at you.
Yeah, I always never understand when I talk to a fellow like actor and they're like, "Oh, I haven't talked to my agent in a couple months and hasn't returned my call." And I was like, he's not thinking about you. Like, if you think that you're what? It's like when I hear people say, "I'm dating someone out of the country." I send them money and I didn't FaceTime them because they're shy, so they never want to talk on FaceTime. But look at all these pictures, and it's like, I don't think you're in a relationship. I think you're blinded to the fact that
you're an ATM. I think you're
and it's like, so I always tell my actor friends, like, no, your agent has to be in love with you. If they're not in love with you, because you're always bragging about the love of your life, right? And so they're not in love with you, and they're always pitching you to someone, like, "Oh, let me tell you about my client," That's love. But if they can't return your phone call and they don't even remember that you're still a client, you're not in a marriage.
Right.
You're a side piece, and you need to go find someone who makes you like, marriage material.
You know what I really hope you do? I really, really hope that whenever you feel like you have time, maybe there's particularly during quarantine, I hope you give talks, because you're only 30, which is like, you still have accumulated way more wisdom than I had when I was at 30, but you also have such a great perspective, not just on the business, but also on the sort of like how to do it in a positive and constructive and responsible way. And I think a lot of people who maybe have been told by the traditional Hollywood machine, oh, here's a strike, here's a strike, here's a strike. I feel like you could come in and really affect people in a positive and very meaningful way that would show them like, your strikes are your strengths. And here's how I navigated these different things. And here's how, because even just the advice that your agent has to be in love with you, and even just knowing that like you still kind of have to, you also kind of have to give them stuff to work with, you wouldn't have gotten the magicians if you hadn't known they must have an office in Vancouver. How did you know that? Well, because you took a particular interest to learn those things. Those aren't things that I think are always intuitive to performers coming into the business of like, you can take control of more than you think you can. And I think you could help so many people if it was something that you considered doing every so often already.
No, that's definitely something that I've been approached to do. Like, so there's something that in there that I love, if I can just tell a story of like where I came from, and that encourages someone to like, go after their dream, then by all means, I will tell my story over and over.
I'm sorry that you didn't get to go to Comic-Con this year. I think you probably would have seen more than a few Guillermos on the floor.
Yeah, I saw a couple last year, which I was surprised because it was our first season. I was like, no one's going to dress up like us. And there they were. And I was like, wow. But I did get to see some at Dragon Con last year.
Oh, cool.
We so much like detail, like into the pattern, like finding the actual pattern that, Guillermo or the vampires, like the actual prints that are so hard to find, like going out of your way to find those. I was like, we have the best fans, and I thank them for like watching the show, and everyone who does watch the show, because it's all for them and it's all because of them.
I really can't thank you enough. This has been so great. And again, it's just when Lydia said, oh, Harvey and I kind of became friends on Instagram, I was like, holy shit. Cause we've been watching Shadows since like episode 1. And it is one of the shows that we don't binge watch. We watch it like as it airs. It's part of our, it's one of our little marriage rituals is watching your show. But we've only actually, I think, met in person one time. I think we just met at Comic-Con.
At Comic-Con, yeah. But then I felt like I already knew you guys. Like, I feel like, oh, we know each other. It's like the thing with social media is like you become friends, and but we also share mutual friends. So it's kind of more like it's only a matter of time where you're like, oh, well, they know, Seth and Claire, and like, yeah. So it's only a matter of time where like these pools of people will interact with each other eventually. And when it does, you don't feel like it's the first time. It's like, oh, it's been in the making for
a long time. Is there anything else I can promote? We can help promote for you, or anything else at the moment?
Just FYC, like if people are going out there, we love you considering the show for best comedy, all of that. You can vote as you will, as they say, but we love the support, and you can go watch it all on Hulu or on FX, and you can also watch all the episodes of Before the Shadows at beforetheshadows.com.
Fantastic. This was a pleasure. I really someday I hope we get to have like an exchange program where we get to come see your amazing furniture, and then you can come to our house. And, like our house really sort of like Lydia and I just had this shared thing by total accident that we both kind of wanted to live in like a weird natural history museum. And so we have like our house has a lot of spooky stuff in it. Lydia's Wednesday Addams. She is so much more goth than I think people would assume she is. Like just
I
where
think
it's
that's
like,
where we headed off. I think that's where we headed.
we were walking the dog yesterday, and she's like, "It's really hot." And I'm like, "You're wearing a long sleeve black shirt and black jeans. It's 97 degrees outside. You can wear shorts."
And she's like, "No, that's not it."
That's exactly how she is. No, I don't think that's it. Okay, all right. You're right. But I will tell her you said hi. And
yes,
and
please do. And I can't wait to see you guys. And we'll definitely have to have a get together.
I hope so. And if it seems like that there's going to be social distancing for a while, maybe there's a social distanced way that we can say hello. And,
as long as 6 feet apart, we can make anything happen.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, Harvey. It's so wonderful to see you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Talk soon. The end. Bye.
ID10T scanning complete. Enjoy your burrito.